Welcome to UndocuStartup by Juan Maya Hernandez.
All right, so welcome to today's episode of UndocuStartup Weekly, where I share the biggest lessons that I've been learning building the #1 entrepreneurship program for undocumented students. If you're an undocumented student liaison struggling to help your undocumented students get into entrepreneurship, visit www.undocuStartup.com. Again, that is www.undocuStartup.com, so we can figure out a way to collaborate. For today's episode, I'm going to do a little bit something a little bit more personal, a little bit different, but it's still connected to the business, right? I've been on this dating journey, trying to find love, trying to find my significant other for the past 2 years or so. And on this journey, on this quest, I found a lot of similarities between dating and building a business. And today I'm going to be sharing with you all some of those similarities. Now, the first similarity, it comes with this concept of getting leads. When you have your business, it doesn't matter whether you use content marketing, you use social media, you use cold email, but that you got to get people interested in the door. And that happens in dating too. Through my experience, whether I was using a dating app, or I was doing cold approach, where I was asking my friends for referrals, it was the exact same thing, right? So that's the first similarity. Second similarity that I found is that you don't beg. All right, I found myself begging to get people to go on a date with me, whatever. Felt like I was escalating. I was trying to get somebody to go on a date with me, right? And you don't beg. I mean, you don't beg anybody to be with you. You don't beg nobody to go on a date with you. But it's the same thing with clients, right? Sometimes I send a lot of follow-ups, partners. I send proposals. I feel like something's going to land. And then I just continue to follow up, and I continue to beg. And that's another similarity where, like, you got to continue to follow up. But at the end of the day, you don't want to beg, chase anybody to be with you. Third similarity is, and this is one of the most important ones that I had to realize, for men, it's you choose a woman that chooses you, that grounds you, right? That chooses you. That's the same thing with the business. There's going to be some clients that are going to choose you. And those are the clients that there's going to be less friction. And those are the clients that you want to work with for in a long-term basis. All right. So choose people that choose you, whether it's in business or whether it's in dating. All right. Right. Next similarity is that you want to play the long-term game. All right. You want to play the long-term game. Now, what does this mean? I understand that with my business UndocuStartup, it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen from today to tomorrow that we're going to have the ecosystem. We're going to have a mentor. We're going to have a venture fund. It's not going to happen like that. You know, I'm playing a long-term game in a sense that I think about 5, 10, 15 years from now. Where do I want to be and how do I get there? Right. And similarly, with dating is the exact same thing, the exact same experience with me, where I understand that even though I'm going on dates, even though I'm putting in the efforts, I may not see the fruits of my labor, or I may not see the seeds that I am planting today, but I might see it maybe a year from now when I find my partner, a year from now when I have children and I have kids and I want marriage and all that stuff, right? So essentially you're planting the seed today, but it's a long-term game, no matter whether it's whether it is for you building your business or for you finding a partner. The fifth similarity is that it's really all about value, right? When you're dating somebody, what do you bring to the table? And then what does that person bring into the table, right? The same thing with the business, right? When I do the programs, when I do the partnerships, all right, I bring in the program, and then the value in exchange for me is just is the money, right? On the money side. But for example, right, like for me, I've always said that as a man, if you're looking for a woman, what is the value that you provide? Well, you know, maybe, at least for me, I'm like, well, I have this provider mindset. I think about how can I support this person that I bring into my life. And at the same time, I want that to also be reciprocated, right? It's not just one-sided. We're both helping each other. We're both helping each other grow. And that's the same thing with the partners, right? Like we bring the program, we solve the problem for your students. I receive some funding for it, and we continue building the relationship there. So it really is about value. So always ask yourself, what is it that I'm bringing into the table, and what is it that the other person on the other side is bringing to the table as well? And then how can you make it mutually beneficial for both parties as you continue with this partnership, or as you continue finding love and dates? The next similarity is that I was celebrating small wins. All right. Every single time I send a proposal for my business, it's a win, right? Every single time I land a new lead, I get somebody to book a meeting with me, that's a win. Or when I get paid, that's a win. When we do a program, that's a win. When a student legalizes their business, gets a DBA, that's a win. All of those things are combinations of wins that I take into consideration. And similarly, when I'm dating, right, a new match is a win on a dating app. Or even as simple as me asking somebody at the Starbucks drive-thru for the number, that is a win on its own, right? Like it's really about enjoying the journey and finding joy in the little wins that you have along the way. The next similarity is that when you're doing business or when you're finding love, you wanna not make decisions based on your emotions. All right. And what this really means, and based on what I've been learning, is that sometimes we tend to overthink, we tend to overanalyze, we tend to assume that a person is not interested in us, or we tend to assume that a client may not be ready for this, right? But I've learned that the less you take it personal, the less you put your emotions into it, the easier it is for you to just make a logical decision, right? And it really just comes down to communication on both sides. Do you want to do this partnership? Yes or no? Do you want to continue dating me? Yes or no? So essentially, you want to make decisions based off of logic and not so much based on your emotions. Because when you're emotional, like when you're angry, at least for me, when I'm angry, when I'm sad, or whatever, I tend to say things that you may not have said if you were just calm down and grounded, right? So one thing that I like to do is just, you know what, let's just take a step back. Let's not take it personal. Let's not assume anything. And let's continue with that. So that is the seventh way on how that's similar. Now, the last way is probably the most important one. It's probably the most important one. And it applies to business and it applies to dating as well. You got to be willing to walk away. All right, you got to be willing to walk away from clients that no longer serve you. You got to be willing to walk away from services that you no longer do, that you don't want to be known for. I did this last year, right? Like there were certain services, or like I was dropping my price down too much, where I was like, you know what, it is not going to make sense ethically if I haven't given a discount to anybody else. Why would I do it for this person? Why would I do it for this partner? Um, and I was just willing to walk away. I was willing to walk away from the deal. I was willing to walk away regardless of what we had talked about, how many meetings we'd had up to that point. And that's totally fine. Same thing with dating, right? You got to be willing to walk away from people that, first and foremost, if a woman does not choose you, you walk away. I would say, like, focus more on what they do, not what they say. I think that based on text messages, you can't really tell how another person feels. But when you, at least for me, when you get to see that person in person and you get to see how they act and they want to constantly see you, I think that's a way positive sign than anything else, right? So, but you have to be willing to walk away from clients, people, decisions that no longer serve you, that are just causing you emotional distress, constantly giving you anxiety, all that stuff. You don't really want that negative energy. And if you have to walk away from it, just take this as a sign. So yeah, I decided to do this episode. It's a little bit different. It was on my mind. I was like, there's some similarities here. But essentially, the moral of this episode is, if you're able to convince somebody to be with you, if you're in a relationship, I mean, that's a close, right? I mean, that's you negotiating, that's you marketing. You have to do it all the time, right? Like when I go on the dating apps, you have to figure out a way. How do you market yourself, right? It's really a marketing thing. The same with your business, right? Like, what picture do you put up first? What words do you think about? And yeah, so essentially, moral of the story: if you can find a partner, you'll be also you'll be able to build a business as well. So, with that being said, everyone, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Remember, give it a thumbs up if you're watching it on YouTube. Give it a star on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and recommend this to somebody that needs to see this. Because I drop a new episode every single week. And with that being said, everyone, thank you all so much. Be motivated and stay motivated, baby. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.